In this video, we are going to be adding the last of the admin pages, and the page we are adding is the assign permissions to roles page. So let me show you what that looks like on the finished project. You click on the roles item on the sidebar, and then it shows you a page with all the roles, and then when you click on the permissions link against any role, it will take you to the assign permissions page, where you can select all the permissions that you want to be assigned to that particular role, and then click on the save button for that to be saved. Okay, so this page basically just has a small table, and the manage roles page has a small table as well. So I want us to copy this manage roles table and then modify it to suit the assign permissions page. So we go to our code base, open the admin folder, open the roles folder, open the index.html file under that, and then we'll select all the code inside it, and then we create a new file within that same roles folder called assign permissions.html. We paste the code inside it, and then scroll to the top and modify accordingly. The title tag should read assign permissions. The header remains the same, the sidebar remains the same. The title of the page now is going to read assign permissions. And then the button here should lead you back to the manage permissions, or rather the manage roles page. And the icon should not be the add circle icon now, it should be the settings icon. So let me see what the settings icon, what the name is for the settings icon. Okay, it is settings outline, so I will just change this to settings outline. Okay, and then on the table itself, the table has 3 columns: the serial numbering, the permission, and the all checkboxes. Serial numbering, permission, I'll take out this one, and then the last one will be it is going to be a label for select all, and inside that label we'll have a checkbox input. The name is going to be select all, and the ID is going to be the same thing. Okay, the name or the value for the label is going to be all, and we are going to give this column a class of small column so that the width should be reduced. Okay, so that's it for the header section. I'm going to remove all the rows on the table except one. So I'll remove the last 2 rows on this table, and then we are left with only one. The first one is the serial numbering column, and it also needs the small column class. So let us add that. We add it on the header for that column as well as the data for that column. And then after the serial numbering, we have the permission itself. There's not going to be any trash link, so I'm taking those out. And then here we're just going to add one permission, for example create post. And then after that we're going to have the last column display a checkbox. For now, let the name just be permission, and we can duplicate this row at least 2 more times and modify it to suit the second and the third items on the table. So we modify the permissions to be update post and delete post. Okay, Let us open this now on our browser. We go to the roles folder and open assign permissions.html, and this is what it looks like. Okay, this is not all. We need to indicate the role whose permissions we are assigning. And for that, on the finished project, we have a div on top of the table that displays that role and the description for that role. So let us add that now. We scroll to the top, just before the table actions div. We're going to create another div called role description. So inside here we'll have an h3 heading. It's going to have the name of the role, let's say author, and then we also have a title, or rather a description. Okay, so this is just a dummy title we are applying for now. And then before we start this, there is one last thing I want us to do, and that is to add this save button at the bottom of the form. Okay, so that button should be found inside a tfoot element, that is the table footer. So the table footer is only going to have one row, and it's also only going to have one table column, the data column, which will span the entire 3 columns on the table. And inside here we'll have a button of type submit, and it's simply going to say save permissions. Okay, we will give this a few classes: btn, primary btn, and lastly long btn. Okay. Okay, so this is how it looks. And since it is a submit button, we are going to need to wrap our table within a form, so that when you click it, it will basically be submitting this form. Okay, so this is the table div. The table is surrounded by a responsive table div. Okay, the table element is surrounded by a responsive table div. So I'm just going to surround both of those inside a form. Okay, so I copy the closing tag for the form. I scroll to where this closing div has been set, and then I paste the closing form tag. Okay, so no design changes. And now let us style the description of the author. It's going to be a very basic style. I'm just going to copy the role description class, open our CSS, and let me start applying these to pages. This will be the assign permissions page. Okay, here we'll select the roles or the role description, and we'll select the paragraph within that and give it you know what, I'm just going to make this a div instead of a paragraph. Then let this class be selected role. The reason is because I want to now give this div a class of description. Alright, so now we have selected row and then description within it. So we say selected row description. Okay, so we will give it a font size of, let's say 1.1 rem. Give it a line height of 1.4 rem, and that's about it. Then let us select the element itself, the wrapper, and give it a background color of white, and then border radius of, let's just say 5 pixels to make it rounded a bit. And then we'll also give it a padding of 20 pixels. Let us refresh. and this looks good. The last thing I want us to do is when the user selects or clicks on the all button, all these other buttons, or rather all these other checkboxes, should also select. And then if they unselect, all these other buttons or checkboxes should also automatically unselect. So in order to achieve this, we're going to use JavaScript. So at the bottom of the assign permissions.html file, we are going to define a new script tag. Let us create a constant called select all, and this is going to select the all elements, this element here. Okay, let us go up here and see where that element is. This is it. Okay, we need to specify the hashtag sign to indicate that this selector is for the ID. And then the next element we need to select is the form itself. I'm just going to give it a class of assign permissions form, and I copy this, scroll down. Okay, it's a class, so we are going to use the query selector class as well, but this time instead of a hashtag we are going to precede the class name with a dot. Then let's be sure to change the name of the variable as well. Okay, so we will attach an event listener on the select all checkbox. So we add a listener for change event. So when you select a checkbox, the event that gets fired is a change event. When that happens, this function is going to execute, and what we want to do in this function is first we are going to select all the checkboxes inside that function. Okay, those checkboxes are inside the assign permissions form. So we are going to say assign permissions form dot query selector all. This time we are using query selector all because we are selecting multiple elements. And what we are selecting here, we are selecting all inputs of type checkbox that are found within an input element. So any input element of type checkbox that's found within a table data element. As you can see here, all of them are found inside a table data element. So this will select all of them, and then now we are going to look through each of them, and for each checkbox that was selected, we are going to set its value to the value for the checked property on the select all. So we are simply saying that if the select all checkbox is all checked, which means if it has already been selected, then all the checkboxes on the form should also be set to checked. If checked is false, then all of them should be unselected. Okay, let us refresh this, and now all of them are unselected. If we select all, we expect all of them to be selected. We click all again, and all of them are unselected. So that's what this script does. And that brings us to the end of this page and the end of all the admin pages. So in the next section, we are going to move over to the user facing side and design all these cards and the other pages on the admin section. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next section.